like to welcome Aakash from Z47 VC, Varsha from Khaitan Legal, please. We'll request Ankit from South Park Commons to kickstart with the intro. Awesome, Aakash.
Hi, Aakash, partner at C47 BBC. We're 8 partners. We invest out of 2 funds, roughly $3.5–4 billion asset under management. As everyone who's a founder would have realized by now, this is the most commodity business. I think as VCs, we ask founders to tell us what's the differentiator. I don't think as a VC I can ever reverse pitch. We are effectively just a wrapper over LP's capital. And yeah, that's my answer to founders who get asked.
That's why I really wanted you on the panel.
So yeah, I think we basically pride ourselves as a partnership on probably 2 things. One is I would say we know how to party and have a fun ride while you're building your companies, and which is the reason why for most of our portfolio, even as an early stage investors, we continue to be even still post IPO, during IPO, their first call.
Awesome. So I'm going to kickstart very, very quickly. Globally, we're seeing rapid shifts driven by OpenAI, DeepMind, and the big platforms. How are these developments shaping your investment thesis? Ankit, would you like to? The whole AI hype, OpenAI, the multi-billion dollar valuations, lovable kickstarting, and it's so, I mean,
I don't think any of those. So I have to caveat everything I'm going to say by saying 2 things. One is like we or me also have a little bit of a more of a founder perspective on some of these things. Two, we work so early, and Aakash knows this. We also work with DVC quite a bit, but we work so early in a founder's journey and at the -1 stage that sometimes these things will just evolve. So those are like how I'm going to answer a lot of this stuff. That's our frame of mind. So that's why I think some of these things, how they are evolving today, are seasonal. What we are seeing today, anyway, by the time our founders eventually build their companies and the companies go on to become real startups and become big, a lot would have evolved, right? So I think for us, what's important is like what is their opinionated point of view a founder may have, or opinionated insight they may have on something, because some of these things will just change and they'll have to evolve. And as long as they will do that and they're doing that, I think that's what we really look for and believe in more and more.
Varsha, to you, we often talk about capital, talent, and IP flow across the corridor. But there's a fourth pillar that quietly decides, which is compliance and deal architecture. Your thoughts on that?
So, sort of if you see the trend of this evening also, right, there is so much of focus on a product, the GTM, right, and the product market fit. And I think so that's where the attention of the founders are, and also of the VCs, right? And especially early stage VCs. It's only later in the day, right, the focus shift towards compliance. And I think so that's the biggest heartburn for the founders, VCs, and even for lawyers alike when we get into the deal stage, because it's really difficult to undo things which have really gone wrong. And the kind of issues that I see in my practice really is around the IP. Right, the IP has not been taken care of, while it becomes extremely important in a tech or an AI-driven startup, right? Either the incubator still has the IP and that's not really shifted to the company or the promoters, or say some of the employees, they tend to have the IP because the agreements were not drafted properly, right? So that is one major challenge that I see today in any, at least tech startup.
Akash, to you, we're seeing a clear rise in India-born teams going US first, especially in applied AI and infra. How is this India-US corridor changing the way you evaluate opportunities and founders?
Sort of simple, right? As founders, if I was to ask you a clear question, right? Take a very simple analogy. Take the best chicken driller in the world and ask them to go find oil in Kanpur, and take an average driller in the world and ask them to go find oil in the Middle East. Who do you think has higher probability? So you can be as stellar as you are, right? But markets do trump and govern certain things. I think with applied AI especially, the big opportunity, if you take a very first principles look at it, is going after the largest ever creation and distribution of market cap, where for the first time technology is going after not just the knowledge working dollars, it is going after the entirety of the labor market dollars, right? And when you think of that opportunity, just use a very first principle hat. In a medium to medium cluster, where would that opportunity play out? In a market which is high per capita GDP and hence a very different dollar per labor, or in a low per capita GDP market? I think that's your answer. The big shift which has happened over the course of the last decade or so is, if I look at the SaaS 2.0 era, where a lot of founders that we work with have had the privilege of backing both individually and then as a fund now, they would typically start finding their PMF over here, early PMF, which they knew, they were conscious that about 60-70% of it would translate to the US market. It was the biggest software buying market. And then over the course of 2 years or so, they would decide to start building GDF there. Again, even in that era, only 60-70% of your PMF translated, less than 30% of your GDF translated. Right? So it was almost a semi-zero one again. What has shifted now is, if the market around what you're trying to solve is so acutely centered in that part of the world, I am seeing founders on day -1 make that choice to be in the market, to be closer to the customer, and actually build it there.
Thank you. Ankit, the startup that you're very excited about could be your portfolio, could be something that you are considering in the pipeline, or something which is outside that you missed investing in. One startup that you were excited about.
It's like asking a parent like who's your favorite child, but it should not be yours. It could be someone else.
It's requesting you to be as candid as possible.
Look, I know this might sound biased, but we have this team, two founders. They're building voice models. They've recently gone pretty viral. It's called Maya Research, right? Some of you might have already seen it on Twitter. Like I think it was a very, if you'd met them 6 months ago, they were like two kids with a dream, right? Like literally, they're from small town, they're from a village. They happened to get full scholarship, went to New York, went to NYU, and because of that, I think a lot of their things in life changed, and they're building voice models with very little money. We've given them one check, but they had grants before that. Very little money. They're already in the top. They're number 22 in the world, right? Top 10, I think, on adoption analysis. So, I mean, the fact that a team like this is possible out of India really is very inspiring. I think obviously it's not even about this team, right? But the fact that that's possible, I hope also gives other people the confidence and conviction that we can do it. We just need the right kind of platform, sometimes capital, and then obviously, like he said rightly, right, going after the right market, because then you can. It doesn't matter, right? As long as the market is there, you can just keep it.
Aakash, the last time we met was when we were hanging out post the India-US cross-border event. Beautiful community, Funda, we were together and just sharing some thoughts. What do you see as a difference in founders building from US, which is based out of US and then maybe doing India-US, versus founders from India, which is like a lot of conventional founders? We kickstart our GTM here, maybe go up till $1 million or so, and then we move. What is the difference that you are seeing, and which one do you advise? Because you're spending time in this cross-border world.
You see, the answer would have been different 3 years back, right? 3 years back, all of us, right? And actually, I'll take a step back, right? You run GTM-oriented communities at events, right? For the longest time in the world of enterprise or B2B, GTM had gotten relinquished to what is actually just a part of GTM, which is adoption, right? Everyone just talk about, hey, this is how you do PLV, this is how you do sales led, this is how you do this. Everyone is talking tactics, right? GTM, this is just adoption layer. GTM is actually a 4-layer thing, right? It starts with what's your core loop, what's your evangelization loop, what is your monetization loop, what is your adoption loop, right? The difference I see between those two sets is that over the course of the last 3 years, the founders in that market actually shifted away from only talking adoption, right? I still come across founders who are still talking, hey, listen, and I was at another Funda event recently, where again there was a bunch of CXOs, CIOs, CTOs. Everyone was still talking about GTM from that adoption vantage point. Saying, hey, listen, how do you run PLG? How do you run SLG? What is working? What is not? Great. That happens in a zone when any industry, right? Every industry goes through two phases cycles, right? Your innovation phase and your optimization phase. Optimization phase is when you only talk tactics or adoption, right? The innovation phase requires a complete full GTL stack rethinking. And I think that's the big difference, the big gap. The founders who are building there, they are actually thinking the full GTL stack. They're not stopping adoption. They're not trying to optimize for the last layer right now. Whereas the founders over here still haven't made that shift. Some of them have. But I think en masse that shift hasn't happened.
So, as a VC, you add that value, right, when you travel between the cross border. While you evaluate them, do you think that is a competitive edge? Would you choose a founder there over that? Would you choose as a VC?
Yeah, see, again, as a firm and as a partnership, our core ethos, and we carry it on our sleeves, is founders first. We are learning from our founders. And the one thing I've learned from founders that I work with, or we as a firm work with, is they are making shift themselves. Like as I said, today, let's say if I'm spending time on the West Coast more, is not because I am choosing to do that, because I see it. My founders are taking that, right? Over the course of the last 2 years, we have ended up finding more founders who made the choice that A minus one, they were already there, which was not the case in like 5 years earlier when we used to do this, right? The founders are making this choice. The reason they're making the choice is, again, you do want that level of osmosis. You do want that level of just the sharing of knowledge to happen. Like Bridget and I were talking earlier, and he asked me, this time you came back, what was so different? I said, this time I found the answer to what is different and why. And take it with a pinch of salt, I'm sorry. I'll be harsh, and I'm known to be very harsh. Most of my founders know it. 997 is freaking table stakes on the West Coast right now. Right? The intensity and agency with which founders over there are going after this once in a lifetime opportunity is 10x different for what I see here. So for me, it's not about even a technical or capability gap, right? I think it's this mindset gap. Till during the COVID period, and I've been doing this since 2008, which was the time when I built my first company, I didn't see that gap. There was never a gap between the intensity and agency of founders here versus founders from the West Coast. Last 3 years, it is clearly a gap. And that gap is primarily, the root cause is obviously there, but besides the root cause, the reason that 997 is table stakes is permeating in that ecosystem is because of that osmosis, right? When you're surrounded by a builder community where that is the core ethos, you operate very differently.
I mean, just as someone who's building between cross-border and helping tech companies do US India cross-border GTM, after a month and a half, I just start craving to go back and soak in that energy. It's just like this mindset shift which happens the moment you enter SF, there's like 1,000 events in a week. And you're like struggling to, oh my god, what is like out of 10, 12 good events which are relevant for you every evening, which one can you make it to? And it might sound crazy, but they're really, really, really powerful. Like some cool VCs, like we have some 15, 17 of them tonight. It's hard to curate this audience. It took us 3.5 weeks to, curate this density. But I don't know how does SF do that every night. I want to share, there's an 18-year-old founder who I met in a Draper Hero program, and I'm an advisor to Draper startups. This is his second startup. His name is Luca. He's from South America. And in second week of the accelerator program, he reached out to 100 plus head of airports all across US to just listen to him because he's building something in aviation. I was like, you're only 18. I did a fireside chat with him. He's like, what? Wait. He's like, Gusto, I just want to reach out. There is no time. This is a second startup. I was amazed. I was like, wow. To that, I want to ask you, Ankit. I mean, there's one founder, this young founder, like let's talk about personas, right? 18-year-old, building his second startup, full of enthusiasm, wanting to make it big, has a supportive community or an accelerator, for example, like Draper, versus let's say a persona like Anand building Explo has built something for 5 years, a large company like Stripe in India. How do you evaluate the two different persona of founders, educators in the room? Because that it helps us understand how do we partner up, like how do we, if we are a young founder, do we partner with like a co-founder? Your thoughts on this?
The question is, how do you evaluate these different personas of founders?
Yeah, like is there, how do you see these two personas while you evaluate to invest?
In September, I think this is important for us as Indians building in India, out of India, from India, for the world, whatever. I took about 25 founders from here and from the US to China. And the intention was, China, leave the media and you have already decided. The idea was when you actually go and spend time with Chinese startups, right? I'm not talking about the Tencents and Alibabas. I'm talking about the Minimax, talking about the agile robotics. I'm talking about, just we went from Beijing, Shanghai, Shenzhen, diversity of, right, Minimax, which is building foundational models, to hardware companies and so on. But I think few things stood out, which is, and we were just kind of talking about it as a group right through the trip. I mean, 996 for them is like MNC culture. They think of like 996 as, yeah, of course, like everybody does that, right? But like we do, 8, 12, 7 or something like that. Is this like, this is what it takes to win, right? So when Aakash is saying that's what the value is, that's why China is becoming what it is, right? And why they're doing open source is because they know that they cannot win, today. They're not the best. So they're like, look, let's just open source, let's prove it out, let's get distribution. Shaihong Show, which is Red Note, they have 300 million DAOs, if I remember correctly. I mean, they're a market leader in their own way. They're now going to US, right? Minimax, they only compare. They were showing us slides, right? They were all very nice, posted us very well. But they were showing us slides of all the top 10 models in voice, speech, chat, video, multimodal. I mean, actually, I was pretty impressed with their, and they showed us the preview of stuff that's to come. But they were only like, look, this is OpenAI, this is us. They were not even talking about India. They were not even concerned where India is on the map, right? They're like, this is the world. In the world, there's OpenAI and there's us. Right? That's how they speak, and this was actually prevalent across. So I think it's important for us to also recognize that if you are playing in a global playing field, remember today it is a global playing field, right? If you are a 18-year-old enthusiastic second, third time idea project now founder to a maybe second time founder who's raised $100 million in your previous company, like I've seen them all at SPCA also. It doesn't matter if you are playing in the global marketplace. Today, access is open to everybody, and honestly, the best will win, right? No matter where you come from, depending on which market you go for. So, I think some of the things, this is going to be controversial. I don't care. Some of the things we sometimes in Bangalore, especially, has become a little acceptance because like this talk of work-life balance, this and that, guys. If you are building, like you're competing with Chinese, you're competing with the Valley, like just play on that, right? Decide which playground are you in, which game are you playing, right? If you are playing this everything else societal game and then you want to go and be the best in the world, it's not going to happen, right? So if you are that person, whether you are a second time founder, whether you are that 18-year-old, like that's sometimes the mindset you just need to operate with, right? Being relentless, being really super obsessed about something, being you may not have super like clarity exactly on day one, that's okay, but be committed to it. And that's actually one of the big things that we look for, right? That if that's who you want to be, then we'll help you get there, right? I know it's a little like long-winded way of saying different things, but this is something that we were just observing across not just U.S. India, but like this is why China is what it is today, and frankly, that's what we'll have to operate at if we want to win.
Varsha, to you, with US tightening its stance on AI, especially under the new administration with stricter export controls, data rules, as an Indian founder, it definitely worries. What are your thoughts? What is your advice on this?
So, if you see US policy, right, other than the tariffs, really, right, it's not really a policy which has only impacted India. So, to that extent, there's a level playing field, right? To them to think that only Indian founders will get impacted or Indian businesses, that's not accurate. Now, what sort of really stands out, and especially in the India-US corridor and the trend that I am seeing, is the concern around data lineage today, right? So, on what set of data have you trained your AI model becomes very important, and how that data was acquired. So that is one concern that I'm also seeing across with VCs. And until and unless they have identified the data lineage, and by lineage I really mean that not really from who you purchase the data, but even that seller, how did that seller possess the data, right? So you go back till the time you figure out how ultimately the data passed on. So that is becoming extremely critical from a US point of view. Other than that, really, I don't think so. India as such is getting impacted because of US policies. And of course, I'm keeping tariffs aside from this discussion.
And any specific measures founders must take in this scenario?
So, couple of measures, right, that can be taken. One is founder time is not really suited for, say, compliance or as to what or how it should be done. I think so that is best managed by experts, right? So my suggestion really in situations like these is, just get an expert either in-house, who's not very high cost, or if you can outsource that value altogether, because you don't want to spend say 40% of your time worrying about these things. But it's very important to get at least three, four things right? How do you set up presence in the US? You don't want to mess up that. Second is, how are you acquiring data and what are you doing with it today? And that becomes very important, especially in the AI system, right? You don't want to fall foul of that, because then you go back several months if you have to fix the data. So look at that. And third is really the IP ownership. So these are the three main components for a tech company.
Akash, to you, every hype wave has a shadow. When you look at an AI founder right now, AI company, especially around automation and workforce shifts, what concerns do you think the ecosystem isn't talking about?
Yes, I think, okay, so the thing that most people are not talking about, and I would say worrying about less, and I see it almost every day, uh, the promise of what you can do and deliver in terms of not just productivity, but actual product and work is a 10x promise to your customer. Your core systems that you just solve by building something totally productized is maybe like a 2x, 3x. So this 3x to 10x bridge is actually all about that last 15%, 20% last mile deployment, right? For some of us, this is, I actually call it the sixth hype cycle of AI. Typically, if you look at any technology, by the fifth or sixth hype cycle, you actually come out with real value, which then starts sustaining and going on a very different curve. That is bound to happen with AI, right? But what, as founders and as builders, we should never forget is all the learnings from the previous cycles. The last cycle, which was early 2010s, we used to call AI as the inverse SaaS playbook. Inverse SaaS playbook was service as a software, right? It was never software as a service. And any founder who has built and spent their time building deep learning, machine learning products will tell you just one thing. My job is to run a service as a software. Initially, I might be 70% service, 30% product. Over time, I will solve for getting to 80% product, 20% service, right? But what I will never lose sight of, which is my North Star, is delivering the output and the output. I think, given with all the advances we have seen, and the pace at which things are moving, a lot of people in the ecosystem are thinking that you can do away with that playbook. that you can take a product and just out of the box, it will start delivering magic. It does not, right? Yes, it is delivering 3x value than what I could have done earlier with the deep learning product. Is it delivering to that 10x promise that people are looking for? Not yet, right? And which is actually what has been playing out over the course of the last 12 months. A lot of separation of wheat from the chaff, where companies which rose up dramatically on back of simply saying that, hey, here's a product, slap it on, move ahead. I think Thomas at Theory published a report yesterday or today morning, and I have the privilege of sharing a work with him, where he said that, hey, listen, this is far from the reality, right? And clearly, there is now proof in the pudding where people who are going that last mile to ensure that they deliver the 10x for their customers, for them, it's a completely different trajectory, both in terms of retention and revenue expansion. And for everyone else is where you hear all these MIT reports and everything that, hey, there is experimental ARR, there is this huge churn, 90% of people are killing their projects. By the way, it is true, they are, right? And I think Jason at Sasper had a brilliant report on this where he said, AI works, it doesn't work for you, right? It doesn't work for you because you have not done the hard part of doing the last 20% of your life. You do that part, it'll work, right? I think the same lesson applies not for the adopters, also for the sellers. You have to do that last 18-20%. You really have to build that muscle. People are talking about it thankfully now. We were joking that FDE has become like this new buzzword. As of today, most people are taking PS and CS and calling it FD. That's not FD, right? If you want to learn FD, go back to the era of when, I don't know how many tools, company called ThoughtWorks, which got built out. Even before that, right? Learn the art of doing that. Because only then you will bridge that 3x to 10x gap. Otherwise, it will keep being in that churning area.
Ankit, how are you seeing U.S. India corridor evolve for AI? Zoom out 3 years from now, 3 to 5 years from now.
It's something similar to what he said. Like there's a lot to learn from what happens in history. We are going to see some of that. I think some of that repeat itself with US India. It's funny. Like when I started doing this first at STC, like I was like, oh, US India, right? Like, so first thing I did is go back and see, okay, what all has happened, right? And people have been trying to do this US India thing forever. Where it's I don't know, where it's like a bad thing, bad word, right? Like, oh, US India corridor, yeah, everyone says they do that. But what are you doing? It becomes a GTM thing, whatnot, right? So I think with AI companies, something that Shivan's doing is definitely going to be very valuable. People will open. We are seeing some of our SF companies starting to do that in India, right? So we have a few some big fundraisers got announced this week. Also, you can see it up. But that will definitely continue to happen in this. Part of it is because of the human feedback problem, and that will only get. I think it'll require a long time for that to change. But I think that will still happen with AI companies. We will definitely see founders who have that global mindset, who are willing to go and invent themselves more quickly, in that ecosystem, in the market, build out those global teams much faster because they will have the nuanced understanding of what the market needs. So all of this, nothing is new here, right? But I think that is what we will see repeating. So I don't think we are going to see some, drastically new stuff when it comes to the US India corridor, when it comes to AI and company building. But we might need less people to do that. That is what might be different from maybe what it was in the past.
Aakash, if you were mentoring a first-time founder from Bangalore, who's going from Bangalore to SF, one piece of advice for him.
I think the key piece of advice would be know the nuance of the ecosystem you're operating in. It's a high trust setup, but a low trusting setup. I think that's one key thing to learn, which is they trust judgment. They will pass judgment with trust. They start with a level of high trust, right? Because why you'll see, even if you think of the early stage ecosystem in terms of investing, People just want to take the risk. They trust you that, hey, listen, you're going to do something well. Here is the money. Go ahead, do it. Right? But it's also a low trusting ecosystem wherein if I do not have a path or some context around which I would want to do that, that doesn't play out. So what does that mean tactically? Tactically, it means that, hey, listen, you're going to land there and go to the market over there and say, hey, listen, I'm here for a month and I want to raise capital. Great, you can. But first, build that contextual trust behind yourself. There are multiple ways to do it. Like to the extent that most of my peers on that in that part of the world, and actually that's truly right. That's been the genesis and origin of venture capital. Always, they wouldn't back you if they can't drive up to you. That's the saying in the valley. If I can't drive up to the company, I don't care. No matter how good you are, no matter where you come from, I'm not backing this, right? So just learn the nuances of that ecosystem. The biggest failure point I see with founders is, oh, I'm going to US, I'm going to sign up customers. Not going to happen. Build that context of giving them a reason to trust you, right? They make that judgment fast. They don't go beating around the bush and doing circles or making the judgment. But without a context, it's not going to happen. So if you want to raise, surround yourself with key influencers, build your roster, build your angel roster, build your strategic investor roster, then slowly drum it up, right? If you want to hit up customers, go pre-plan, hit up 100 people beforehand, hopefully establish enough context with them, and then land up there, right? If you're going to try and expect magic to happen, that's not going to happen.
There's a question from the audience. Please don't mind me asking this, Aakash. One of the founders is asking, they see a trend that your fund invests in second-time founders a lot more. Out of 250 of them, at least 100 plus of them are pre-revenue, first-time founders, younger ones, 20 to 27, 28-year-old. Why?
I think we actually, my colleague, Dr. Vikram, has done a full podcast on it. I can answer that. What makes a founder succeed, right? Like if you really look for correlations of what leads to large venture scale outcome creation, the highest correlation is just with one thing. The best founders are snowball of continuous resource accumulation. That's what they do, right? So when you look at second time founders, they have sort of learned that. That hey, listen, I can solve for, like if I was to ask you, what's the difference between a CEO and a founder, right? The difference is a CEO is provided resources and they're great resource allocators, right? A founder is a freaking resource generator. They generate resources, right? Second time founders sort of have learned that. And again, honestly, not all, right? They learn that and they imbibe that and they truly build ventures with that mindset that I have to be the best in class resource accumulator who keeps snowballing down that path, right? First time founders, and by the way, it's not that first time founders don't do it. We are proud to be investors in the reason. We're the first check into reason. They were first time founders. Actually, even Bhavesh, who's a close friend, when he's with somebody, he was the first time founder. So, what is it that a first time founder can do to become that? Or at least from my vantage point, probably be someone who I would back. They have already found this answer. And usually, second time founders, because they have found this answer, they tend to do few more things. They tend to pick problem statements for which they have 10,000 hours of context behind them, right? Because they're trying to stack odds in their favor. They know this is the most important thing. I don't want to solve and have a nuisance and headache of all these other things. I'll pick great markets. I'll pick large profit pools. I'll pick domains where I have 10,000 hours. I don't want to do 0 to 1 on those things, right? First time founders' unique edge is a fresh perspective to a domain, right? You need not have 10K hours in the domain, and that is what you'll bring. And it is exactly like what relocated Arjun Shah just brought a fresh perspective. By the way, just for context, they were probably the 60th payment company that started in the country, right? Many seasoned founders had started payment companies. The difference was, what can a first time founder do? Can you compress that journey of 10K hours, right? Can you be a relentless MFer to really, in the course of 1, 2, 3, 6 months, keep coming back and beating that 10K hours. Actually, I've had the privilege of backing many first-time founders. That's the thing that I look out for, right? That over the course of 2 months, every interaction, they are just out doing and getting smarter.
Indeed, payment and fintech is so hot. A few of us founders in the room, I was with them in SF Tech Week, and 60% of the companies are building in either merchant of records or payment or.
Actually, I'll add to it. Also, pick battles that you can, right? If you look at fintech, there are 5 parts to fintech, and again, that just takes some extra time because I really bother about this topic a lot, right? Don't pick battles where you can't ever in your lifetime build 10 years of context. Fintech has 5 parts: float and payments, insurance, lending, wealth, infra, right? Anything wealth and everything lending and insurance, no matter what you do, it is inhumanly possible for you to build 10 years of context in a short window. That is why you will always see those domains be built by repeat founders, people who come from that domain. And the number of times people have tried to defy that law of gravity, it has just resulted in failure. Here's the reason. Things which are humanly not possible, at least I as a founder have built 4 companies in the past, taken one to almost a $500 million plus revenue outcome. You just can't don't do it. As a founder, always be obsessed about one thing, winning. Winning requires stacking odds in your favor. Pick battles that you can fight. Payments, flow, everything, fair game, everyone's game. Go at it, right? If you're gonna try and defy that law in lending, insurance, wealth, never gonna happen. I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't touch it as a founder. I wouldn't touch it as an investor.
Speaking of evaluating, sorry, just gonna take 10 more seconds since you are so deep in this. A second time founder, but the first startup went like failed, tanked. Would you still consider the experience, and would you, I mean, if the other few criteria find interesting, and if not, why? I was with just asking for a friend. I was with a founder. He's present in the room. Don't want to call him out, but we were just talking, and I was like, "This is one of the questions I want to ask Aakash." And then he's like, "I want to know, like, why would Z47 invest or not?"
Yeah, see, some of these are, I actually don't think founder and investor answers are different. They're usually aligned, they need to be aligned, that's why we create value. There are 3 parts to building. A venture life stage is broken into 3 parts. 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100, right? 10 to 100, 10 to infinite, whatever you want to call it. Through those 3 venture stages, you'll be surprised. Context and the ask changes every stage, right? So to your question, if someone has gone through a 0 to 1 and failed at it, I don't know, right? I don't know if, and again, remember, as an investor, our job is to underwrite the risk, right? We are trying to generate to a risk-reward industry. If you've gone through a 0 to 1 and failed at it, what did you fail at? Did you fail at finding product market fit? Or did you fail at shipping? Did you fail at establishing early channels or traction? Or did you fail at just misinterpreting and making wrong decisions, right? That matters, that context matters. What did you fail at in your 0 to 1? If you failed at those other things which are all about, hey, listen, this I learned, I give credit to Prashant of Absolute Bharat, who I've known for more than a decade now. He actually had a beautiful line that he wrote, and I steal it, I vocally with credit. He said 0 to 1 is a 0 until it's 1. Right? So I hear a lot of this yarn around people coming and saying, oh, you have done a 0 to 1, I went somewhere to 0.4, 0.5, it's a 0. 0 to 1 is a 0 until it's 1. Right? So it depends on what you failed at, what did you learn. If you learned the right things and you contextualize them into your next 0 to 1 journey, worthy, right? I don't think more than 5-10% of founders who fail in the 0 to 1 do that.
Coming to our second last section, which is the rapid fire VC edition. And for Varsha, I'll do a lawyer edition. I'll add one or two interesting questions. Um, Speed to launch or depth of IP? Choose one.
Depth of IP. Any day.
Ankit, unicorn valuation potential or category defining domination? Please be candid, guys.
Category to parent.
Founders with SF exposure or India only grid builders?
So that's for me.
Yeah?
That's a bit photo right now.
Okay. Momentum investing or conviction investing? Ankit.
Conviction.
Invest in the founder or invest in the trend? Aakash.
Any day, always founder.
Incorporate in India or incorporate in US?
Both.
And then contact Khaitan legal to flip in structure. Deep tech modes or distribution modes, Ankit?
That's contextual. But largely tech modes.
SF for speed or Bangalore for scale?
I don't think Bangalore has a scale.
Applied AI or foundational AI?
We're looking for foundational AI.
Aakash?
Purely applied AI.
Applied. AI native from day one or AI added to existing workflow? Aakash?
Only native.
AI native. Global brand early or local until PMF? Ankit?
Local until PM is fine. I don't think we need to go all the way.
India as an engineering hub or India as an AI go-to-market hub? Ankit?
Start with the GDM.
Founders with SF exposure or founders living in SF and then building for global markets?
Latter.
Latter. So now this quick fire round, answer in one or two words or maybe one short sentence, but please keep it crisp. One Indian AI startup that more people should be paying attention to? Aakash?
Only one comes to mind, Dash Reels.
I gave all of them these questions, by the way. Just
No, and as a very good practitioner of my out of venture capital, I didn't see anything.
one thing SF founders understand that Indian founders often miss. Ankit?
This is a very obvious one, but what really works in the US? Like we need to really go deep and understand that nuance.
One legal trend you're personally tired of hearing about in the US India cross border space?
That how AI is going to replace lawyers.
There is one company which is building a legal tech here. The most over buzzword in 2025.
For me, FD.
One word to describe India's AI opportunity. Varsha.
Massive.
What's the fastest growing AI use case you're tracking in legal domain?
So something very funny, right? Why it's not, and I'm going to keep it short. So short while back, you were asking any VCs in the room, and your text to speech said any disease in the room. So I'm not tracking any AI trend.
Maybe it was intentional.
Ouch.
No, we didn't say.
The first thing you notice when evaluating an AI pitch, Aakash?
I don't know.
Be candid.
First thing I notice is how much away from the obvious it is or not. Tired of seeing too much of the obvious.
What's the biggest blind spot founders have about the US market? Ankit?
Biggest blind spot. I think consumer and user insight. Real deep consumer and user insight. It's different.
Personal favorite AI tool? Aakash?
Oh, the granola. I'm too lazy, it just does the job.
The biggest misconception about India as an AI hub, Varsha.
That there is cheap talent available. So there's just talent available.
Absolutely. One thing you wish more founders did before fundraising, Aakash.
Studied the history of the domain you're trying to solve.
One ethos of South Park Commons that you've been building since you shared, you've started 1 year since. One ethos that you've been building in India with the exposure that you have, that you bring.
Be intentional. Your vector of attack matters a lot more than just pure grit and pure ambition. Be intentional about what you're doing, go deep.
A question to both you and Akash. One founder trait you bet on every time in every deal.
Rehope. Relentless input, relentless output.
I must say, Akash has a lot of fundas, jargons, a lot to learn.
Happens when you've been doing this for 20 years.
But I think I said this with the whole China and India and US example, but same thing, we do look, I personally also do look for relentless folks who have grit and resilience.
What will separate AI winners from the rest? Akash.
Actually, it is anyone's guess. I think it's a pretty uncertain time in every way. Things I worry about is so small anecdote and again reality check. Cloud and mobile happened in an era when we had just come out of the GFC, the global financial crisis '7, and hence they got a run which was very unique. The financialization was subdued, was suppressed, was more thoughtful. AI is happening on the footnotes of reserve era. And again, we have gone back into interest rate corrections. I do worry about we're in a bubble. And hence, what is going to separate AI winners, in my view, is going to be the ones who are able to tide over through this phase. Trust me, it's a shock and awakening which is bound to happen anytime. It's not about AI being a bubble or not. It's just the nature of where the market is. Globally, we have been away from a cycle of correction. Typically, financial markets correct every 7 to 8 years. Post 2008, we haven't. So we are already overdue. Maybe AI and all the talk about circular revenue ends up being the trigger for it. Not necessarily the cause, the trigger for it. But there is a moment of awakening around the corner. And the success of AI companies is going to be the ones who are able to tide through this. And that's exactly what we saw in the dot-com wave. There were companies who survived it. They ended up becoming great companies, all the companies that we respect now. Same thing is going to happen. I won't be surprised, I can actually wager on it. Hundreds and thousands of startups with a lot of funding are going to go belly up. The 99 period, if any of you have spent time studying history of venture, about 90% of venture funds went out of business. Same thing is going to happen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Guys, can we have a louder round of applause? They were really kind. Just one more louder applause, please.